So I've talked about Anthony Edwards a little bit. Now let's dive into Lamelo Ball, one of the other potential high pick guards for this upcoming draft. Probably the one who's got the most noise about him going into it for obvious reasons. I mean, first and foremost, the fact that he's been playing in professional leagues rather than college is pretty intriguing. I mean, I guess I wouldn't know if the professional leagues overseas, the NBL to be exact, is more talented than college basketball in America right now, but even so, I mean, being around grown men every day, you're probably going to get more of a life experience out of that than playing in college, right? And LaMelo over there has potentially been humbled a little bit because, you know, it was a conversation if he was a little too cocky or not mature enough to fit on a team and all that. And I mean, some of it just comes with age as well. But I do know that was a bit of a fear when LaMelo was a little younger. So there's that. And then as far as his actual game is concerned, I mean, it sounds really simple, but he seems like a tall guard who can dribble, create shots, make plays, and potentially shoot. The shooting will be interesting. I think I do want to start with the shooting, actually. Similar to Lonzo, there's a bit of a unorthodoxness, if that's a word, to his shot. He does shoot it a bit on the left side of his head. He does shoot it kind of, it's like going up with it rather than taking it all the way up to the top of his head and then releasing, which isn't horrible by itself, but there's just a lot going on. You know, his legs are at a weird angle and his elbow is not as straight as you would like it to be, and there's just, it doesn't look like the prototypical jump shot, right? But he does seem confident with it, and there is something about it that when he does take it, it doesn't look as awkward as it does when you slow it down and break it down like second by second, you know? So there's a chance that he's just comfortable enough with it, and I also think with the way he shoots it, it opens up the floor for him to be able to pull up. It just seems like a form that you can get into off the dribble without a whole bunch of hesitations. That's great. As far as his actual shooting percentages, I mean, he only played 12 games in the NBL, so it's tough to really look at it like that, but he shot 24% on threes. He attempted about 7 a game, and he made about 1.5 a game, so okay. His free throw percentage, he didn't shoot a lot of free throws, only about 4 a game. Well, even then, that's not horrible, but he shot 4 a game, and he shot 72%. I saw something where it's like from college to from high school to now, he's in like the 80s on a good amount of free throw attempts. So, okay, maybe his jump shot is a little too awkward for him to be a knockdown guy, but I think there's something to work with there. If we move past that and we get to his just shot creation and his size and all that, I mean, he's 6'7", and he's can really go off the dribble and make some plays. I mean, it's rare for a dude this tall to be this good of a ball handler the way that he can. Just have a bunch of moves, spins and behind the backs and between the legs and quick crossovers and hesitation moves. Like, he really dribbles like a point guard who's like 6'2", but he's 6'7", you know, and that's really valuable. And so he's going to have a matchup advantage if teams put their smaller guards on him, which means you might have to put a bigger dude on LaMelo. And as a result, you've now got your point guard on whoever. I mean, it's depending on the team, it's not a big deal, but maybe if LaMelo ends up on a team with a lot of talent around him, then he could really force some opposing point guards into some tough situations where they got to defend some bigger dude who can go off the dribble, whether it's LaMelo or somebody else. The crazy thing is, LaMelo could end up like on the Warriors. I don't know if he would totally fit there, but, you know, given where they're, you know, sitting at in the records right now, which I believe is the worst team in the league, so it could be them, it could be like the T-Wolves if they wanted to get him, but even then, you know, it's like, would they want him after getting D'Angelo Russell? I mean, I guess you take the most talented guy and you figure it out later, but that's something. I mean, Cleveland, Atlanta, the Pistons, the Knicks, the Bulls, the Hornets, Phoenix, the Spurs. The lottery, of course, is super random now, as I say every time I mention it. So, depending on whatever team he ends up on, maybe it would alter his role a little bit, but he's clearly at his best with the ball in his hands, isos, pick and rolls, also working in transition. LaMelo's a very good rebounder. In the NBL, he averaged 17, 7, and 7. And then that allows him to get out in transition. And he does have a lot of the similar Lonzo stuff as a passer between the reading of the defense and predicting what they're going to do. His shot selection can sometimes be a little iffy, but I do think if he ends up in the right situation with a good coach, that LaMelo can grow to being a guy who can really be like a floor general and call out plays and hunt mismatches and do all that type of stuff. And he does pull off some really wild passes in transition. The way that he can like slow down on a fast break already and read who's going to be open and then hit him with a bounce pass, or he throws full court passes without any trouble, and he just does a lot of stuff with the ball. And because he's 6'7", it just amplifies his potential there. Defensively, I think he projects to be good, assuming that he just cares. I mean, the big fear with him is that he just doesn't put enough energy on the defensive side of the floor, falls asleep when his guy doesn't have the ball, that sort of stuff. Maybe he needs to get a little stronger to be able to stay in front of wings, because in a perfect world, he's able to defend like probably 3 positions, So he might have to put a little bit of weight on for that. But his length, to me, makes it to where he can be a good defender. I mean, he's 6'7" with, I believe, a 6'9" wingspan, so that alone should do a lot for him, assuming that he just simply cares. Yeah, I think LaMelo's got a lot of potential. I can see why he's thought of as one of the higher dudes in every mock draft. I guess the fears with him are he's not that mature, his shooting is not good enough, his shot selection isn't good enough. But again, I think there's enough evidence to suggest he's already moving away from some of those things. And even if he ends up not being a great scorer, but he's still a good passer and defender and stuff, that's still a good player who you can have around for a while. So maybe he ends up going third or whatever. And I mean, it depends on the team that falls there, but maybe he ends up just being like a 15-point, 6-7 rebound and assist kind of guy with plus defense. That's still good. I mean, we see almost every year there's usually maybe 1 to 2 or 3 top 10 picks who end up sucking. So to even get somebody decent is usually an accomplishment. But there's also the chance that LaMelo's a star and he can be a big-time scorer and playmaker and a triple-double guy, and he's definitely got the confidence for it. I mean, compare that to Lonzo. You could argue sometimes Lonzo hasn't been confident enough. Like, sometimes Lonzo is a little too content with just fitting into the game. Whereas I think LaMelo, sometimes potentially to his detriment, wants to be the best player on the floor. But if you can channel that confidence in the right way, then you can be a hell of a player. Now, I guess the worst case scenario for LaMelo is he's like some combination of Austin Rivers and Michael Carter-Williams, where the confidence may be there and you think he's got the shot creation, but then he comes into the NBA and suddenly it's, he can't beat any NBA defenders off the dribble. No one really respects his jump shot, and he just kind of floats around, and maybe he finds a team that is just a good fit. Who really knows? I guess there's a chance he could be like a Ricky Rubio as well, if we want to talk about him being a disappointment but still managing to be okay. But again, he does seem alright. So because I did this with Anthony Edwards, I'll do it with LaMelo now. If I could pick one team that I think would be the most interesting without really thinking about it, who would it be? So Of course, the lottery is a little all over the place, so there's a chance that even a team like Portland could have a chance at the 3rd pick or whatever, even though they ended the season at 3.5 out of the 8th seed. Let's see, one team. I mean, if you promised me LaMelo was going to be a good defender, then him next to Trae Young could be interesting, because it would allow Trae Young to do more stuff off the ball, and it would give them 2 ball handlers. But if LaMelo is not going to figure it out defensively, then that could be pretty rough. I would say Chicago, because they're in desperate need of a playmaker. At least to me they are. Also just a better coach, but I don't know if Boylan's actually going to get fired. But even then it's like, but then I got to have LaMelo's sometimes iffy shot selection with Levine, who doesn't always have the best shot selection, but LaMelo could take the ball out of Levine's hands sometimes. I don't know, there's not one team in the lottery that I look at and I just immediately say, you put LaMelo there and it would be perfect. But I would kind of like to see him next to Trae Young, for the potential of it, them scoring 150 a game and allowing 145, if LaMelo's not going to figure it out defensively. So I guess I'll go Atlanta.